Welcome to TT-Buddhism, where we explore the wisdom of Buddhism to help you find peace, happiness, and clarity in life. In today's video, we will discuss a topic that many people struggle with: loneliness. At some point, we all experience loneliness. You may be surrounded by people, have friends, family, and colleagues, yet still feel disconnected. Loneliness is not always about being physically alone. Rather, it often stems from unfulfilled expectations and emotional disconnection. If left unchecked, it can lead to deep suffering, anxiety, and sadness. However, what if we told you that loneliness is not always a curse? What if it could actually be a blessing in disguise? According to Buddhist teachings, suffering, including loneliness, does not come from external circumstances, but from our own attachments, cravings, and expectations. When we understand this, we can shift our perspective and turn loneliness into an opportunity for self-growth, self-discovery, and inner peace. Instead of fearing loneliness, we can learn to embrace solitude and use it as a powerful tool for personal transformation. In this video, we will explore the root causes of loneliness, why it persists, and most importantly, how to transform it into a source of strength and wisdom. By applying the teachings of the Buddha, we can learn to navigate loneliness with a clear mind and a peaceful heart. Stay with us as we uncover the Buddhist way to overcome loneliness and cultivate a fulfilling, independent, and meaningful life. Let's begin. Understanding the root causes of loneliness. Many people believe that loneliness is caused by external circumstances, such as being alone or separated from loved ones. While physical isolation can contribute to loneliness, it is not the sole reason why we feel disconnected. Surprisingly, even in the presence of friends, family, or colleagues, we may still feel lonely. Why does this happen? The answer lies within our own expectations, desires, and attachments. 1. The misconception about loneliness. Most people assume that loneliness results from a lack of social interaction. They believe that if they are surrounded by others, they will feel connected and happy. However, this is not always the case. Many individuals in relationships, friendships, or even social events experience deep loneliness. This is because loneliness is not simply about being alone. It is about feeling emotionally unfulfilled. For example, you might have friends, but if your interactions with them do not meet your expectations, you may feel isolated. If you expect love, attention, or validation from others and do not receive it in the way you desire, a sense of emptiness can arise. This emotional gap creates suffering and a false sense of loneliness, even when people are physically present. 2. The Buddha's teachings on suffering and attachment. The Buddha taught that suffering, including loneliness, does not originate from external circumstances but from within. It arises due to our cravings, attachments, and expectations. In the Dhammapada, verse 338, the Buddha compares suffering to a tree. Just as a tree, though cut down, sprouts up again if its root remains uncut and firm, even so, until the craving that lies dormant is rooted out, suffering springs up again and again. This means that no matter how many times we try to eliminate loneliness by changing external conditions, such as finding new friends, engaging in social activities, or seeking external validation, loneliness will return if its root cause remains unaddressed. Just like a tree that keeps growing back if its roots are not removed, loneliness will continue to arise if we do not change our inner perspective. 3. The true root of loneliness. Buddhism teaches that loneliness is not caused by the absence of people, but by the attachment to expectations and desires regarding relationships. When we expect others to always be there for us, to fulfill our emotional needs, or to act according to our wishes, we create a dependence on them for our happiness. When these expectations are not met, we feel abandoned, unloved, or disconnected. Instead of addressing this inner issue, many people try to fix loneliness by constantly seeking new relationships, distractions, or external sources of happiness. However, as long as we rely on external conditions for inner fulfillment, loneliness will persist. The key to overcoming loneliness lies in shifting our focus inward, rather than depending on others for happiness. 4. Key takeaway: loneliness is not simply the absence of people. It is the result of our attachment to expectations and desires. By recognizing this, we can begin to address the real cause of loneliness, not by seeking more social interactions, but by learning to be at peace within ourselves. In the next section, we will explore how to change our perspective on loneliness and transform it into a powerful opportunity for self-growth. Changing our perspective on loneliness. Loneliness is often perceived as something painful, a state of suffering that we should avoid. Many people believe that being alone is inherently negative, but this is a misunderstanding. Loneliness is not defined by the absence of people. It is shaped by how we interpret solitude. If we continue to see loneliness as a punishment, it will always feel like a burden. However, if we learn to embrace it, solitude can become a valuable teacher, helping us grow in ways that constant social interactions cannot. The key shift in perspective is recognizing the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the painful feeling of being disconnected, often caused by unmet expectations in relationships. Solitude, on the other hand, is a chosen state of being alone, where we can reflect, recharge, and develop self-awareness. The problem is not simply being alone, but how we interpret the experience. If we resist solitude and see it as suffering, we will feel lonely. However, if we embrace it as an opportunity for growth, we can transform it into a source of strength and wisdom. The story of the Buddha offers a powerful example of how solitude can lead to profound transformation. Before attaining enlightenment, Siddhartha Gautama practiced extreme self-mortification, believing that severe hardship was the path to liberation. During this time, he was accompanied by 5 monks who admired his discipline and dedication. However, when the Buddha realized that self-mortification was not the right path and chose to follow the middle way, these monks lost faith in him and left. He was abandoned, left alone in the depths of the forest. But instead of experiencing loneliness, he embraced solitude. This period of isolation became the most important part of his journey, allowing him to engage in deep meditation and self-reflection, which ultimately led to his enlightenment. This teaches us that being alone does not necessarily mean being lonely. It is not the absence of people that causes suffering, but our attachment to their presence. So how can we apply this wisdom to our own lives? The key lies in changing our perception of loneliness and recognizing it as an opportunity rather than a curse. Instead of focusing on the absence of others, we should focus on what solitude gives us: space to reflect, time to pursue personal growth, and the ability to deepen our self-awareness. When we stop looking outward for validation and fulfillment, we realize that happiness is something we cultivate from within. Self-reflection is one of the most powerful ways to transform loneliness into personal growth. When we are alone, we have the chance to ask ourselves meaningful questions. Who am I when I am alone? What truly makes me happy? what are my strengths and weaknesses? Loneliness becomes less painful when we use it to gain clarity about ourselves and our purpose in life. By understanding ourselves better, we become less dependent on external relationships to feel whole. Another important step is letting go of unrealistic expectations. A major cause of loneliness is expecting others to constantly be there for us. However, no one can fulfill our emotional needs 100% of the time. When we release these expectations, we become more independent and emotionally resilient. Instead of seeking validation from others, we learn to enjoy our own company and build inner strength. Engaging in meaningful activities can also help shift our focus from what is missing to what is already present in our lives. Whether it's reading, meditating, exercising, creating art, or simply appreciating nature, these activities help us cultivate joy from within. When we stop depending on external circumstances for happiness, solitude transforms from something to fear into something to cherish. The moment we stop resisting loneliness and start embracing solitude, everything changes. Instead of feeling trapped by the absence of others, we can begin to cherish the time we have with ourselves. Solitude gives us space to heal, reflect, and grow, things that are often impossible when we are constantly surrounded by distractions. The next time you find yourself alone, pause and shift your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why am I alone?" try asking, "What can I learn from this moment of solitude?" When we reframe our thoughts in this way, loneliness no longer feels like suffering. It becomes an opportunity to strengthen our minds, deepen our self-awareness, and cultivate true inner peace. In the next section, we will explore how to actively turn loneliness into a blessing in daily life using practical techniques inspired by Buddhist wisdom. Stay with us. Transforming loneliness into a blessing. Once we change our perspective on loneliness and recognize solitude as an opportunity rather than a curse, the next step is to actively use it for personal growth. Instead of resisting loneliness, we can embrace it as a powerful tool to cultivate inner strength, wisdom, and emotional independence. When we stop seeking external validation and start focusing on self-improvement, we realize that being alone can be one of the most transformative experiences in life. Many people spend their entire lives trying to escape loneliness, seeking distractions through social media, entertainment, or constant interaction with others. However, running away from loneliness does not solve the problem. It only delays it. Instead, if we use this time wisely, we can turn loneliness into a period of self-discovery and transformation. A crucial aspect of this transformation is self-reflection. When we are alone, we have the perfect opportunity to ask ourselves deep and meaningful questions. Who am I beyond my relationships? What are my true passions? What kind of life do I want to build? Often, we get so caught up in societal expectations and external influences that we forget to listen to our own inner voice. Solitude gives us the space to reconnect with ourselves, understand our emotions, and gain clarity about our purpose in life. Another way to make loneliness a blessing is by cultivating new skills and healthy habits. Instead of feeling sorry for being alone, use this time to engage in activities that nourish your mind and soul. Reading, writing, meditating, exercising, or learning something new can help shift your focus from what is missing to what is present. The Buddha emphasized the importance of self-discipline and self-reliance, teaching that true happiness comes from within, not from external sources. When we develop a routine that includes mindfulness practices and self-improvement, loneliness no longer feels like an empty space. It becomes a productive and fulfilling experience. Practicing self-compassion is another essential step in this process. Many people feel lonely because they judge themselves harshly or believe that their worth depends on the approval of others. However, being alone does not mean being unworthy or unloved. It simply means that life is giving us a chance to nurture ourselves. Treat yourself with kindness, take care of your well-being, and remind yourself that your value is not determined by how many people surround you, but by how much peace and happiness you cultivate from within. Lastly, embracing loneliness allows us to develop emotional independence. Often, people rely on external relationships to feel complete, but true fulfillment comes from within. The more we learn to enjoy our own company, the less we depend on others for happiness. When we are emotionally independent, we engage in relationships not out of fear of being alone, but out of genuine connection and love. By transforming loneliness into a period of self-growth, self-care, and self-discovery, we turn what was once seen as suffering into one of life's greatest blessings. Instead of fearing solitude, we begin to cherish it as a sacred space where we can cultivate wisdom, peace, and a deeper connection with ourselves. In the next section, we will explore how to integrate these lessons into everyday life, making solitude a source of long-term happiness and fulfillment. Sustaining a peaceful life in solitude. Once we learn to embrace solitude as a blessing, the next challenge is to maintain this mindset and integrate it into our daily lives. Many people find temporary peace when they are alone, but over time, old fears and insecurities can resurface. To sustain a peaceful life in solitude, we must cultivate habits and practices that keep us grounded, mindful, and emotionally independent. One of the most effective ways to maintain inner peace is through mindfulness. Mindfulness means being fully present in the moment, without dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Many feelings of loneliness stem from regrets about past relationships or anxieties about being alone in the future. However, the Buddha taught that true peace is found in the present moment. When we stop chasing what was or fearing what will be, we can appreciate the beauty of what is. Simple moments, like feeling the warmth of the sun, listening to the sound of rain, or enjoying a quiet cup of tea, become sources of joy when we are mindful. Another essential practice is self-compassion. Many people struggle with loneliness because they judge themselves harshly for being alone. They may think, "Why am I not in a relationship?" or "Why don't I have more friends?" This kind of self-criticism only deepens feelings of isolation. Instead, we should learn to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a close friend. The Buddha emphasized loving kindness, metta, which includes extending compassion not only to others, but also to ourselves. When we practice self-love, we realize that our worth is not defined by external relationships, but by our own inner peace and contentment. Connecting with nature is also a powerful way to sustain a peaceful life in solitude. The natural world teaches us patience, impermanence, and simplicity. When we spend time in nature, walking in the forest, sitting by a river, or simply observing the sky, we begin to feel more connected to life itself. Nature reminds us that we are never truly alone. We are always part of something greater. The Buddha himself often retreated into the wilderness for meditation, finding deep wisdom and serenity in solitude. Another key to embracing solitude is engaging in meaningful activities. Many people fear being alone because they associate solitude with boredom or emptiness. However, when we fill our time with enriching experiences, solitude becomes deeply fulfilling. Reading, meditating, writing, painting, or practicing yoga are all ways to cultivate inner peace. When we engage in activities that nourish our minds and hearts, we realize that we do not need constant social interaction to feel whole. Instead, we develop a sense of purpose and contentment from within. Finally, to sustain a peaceful life in solitude, we must let go of attachments and unrealistic expectations. A major source of suffering is the belief that we need others to complete us. However, as the Buddha taught, everything is impermanent. People come and go, relationships change, and nothing lasts forever. By accepting this truth, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and learn to cherish the present moment. Instead of seeking fulfillment from external sources, we turn inward and find peace within ourselves. Living in solitude does not mean isolation. It means being at peace with ourselves, whether we are alone or with others. When we embrace solitude as a way of life, we no longer fear loneliness. Instead, we see it as an opportunity to grow, reflect, and deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world. True peace is not found in external circumstances, but in the stillness of our own heart. In the next section, we will conclude with a reflection on how these Buddhist teachings can help us lead a more fulfilling and independent life. Stay with us. As we reach the end of this journey, we hope that you now see loneliness in a different light. Loneliness is not something to be feared or avoided. It is an opportunity for self-growth, self-reflection, and inner peace. Through the wisdom of Buddhism, we learn that suffering, including loneliness, does not come from external circumstances but from our own attachments, expectations, and cravings. When we free ourselves from the idea that happiness must come from outside, we begin to discover the immense strength and fulfillment that solitude can offer. Instead of resisting loneliness, we can transform it into a time of self-discovery and renewal. When we shift our perspective, solitude is no longer a burden, but a sacred space where we can reconnect with ourselves, build emotional resilience, and cultivate wisdom. The Buddha himself spent years in solitude before achieving enlightenment, showing us that being alone does not mean being lost. It can be the path to true clarity and freedom. By practicing mindfulness, self-compassion, and detachment from unhealthy expectations, we learn to embrace solitude as a way to deepen our understanding of life. When we become comfortable with ourselves, we realize that we are never truly alone. Peace, wisdom, and contentment are always within us. As you move forward, we encourage you to take moments of solitude not as something to fear, but as a gift to cherish. Whether it is through meditation, self-reflection, learning new skills, or simply enjoying nature, use this time to cultivate inner strength and independence. Remember, a person who is at peace in their own company will never be afraid of being alone. At TT-Buddhism, our mission is to bring Buddhist wisdom into everyday life, helping people find peace, meaning, and happiness. We believe that the teachings of the Buddha are timeless and can guide us through the challenges of modern life, including the struggle with loneliness. You are not alone in this journey. Millions of people around the world seek the same wisdom, the same peace, and the same understanding. We encourage you to reflect on today's message and apply it in your own life. Start by embracing solitude, cultivating mindfulness, and letting go of unnecessary attachments. The more you learn to be at peace with yourself, the more you will experience true happiness, one that is not dependent on anyone else. We sincerely thank you for watching this video and being part of our community. Your time and presence mean a lot to us, and we hope that this message has brought you inspiration and clarity. If this video has helped you in any way, please support our channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your engagement allows us to continue creating meaningful content that spreads wisdom and positivity. We would love to hear from you. Have you ever struggled with loneliness? How have you tried to overcome it? Share your thoughts in the comments below, as your experiences may inspire and help others who are going through similar challenges. Thank you again for being here. May you find peace, joy, and wisdom on your journey. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.